the next presentation is devoted to a very close problem of not horizontal but mostly vertical transmission in Russian families in two North Caucasus republics, and how differences in context influence this transmission. We have some theoretical issues which were relevant to our study problems. For example, that high parent-child value similarity is an indicator of successful transmission of values within a family. That family climate is very important, warm parent-child relations for value similarity. Majority studies demonstrated that parents are the main source of religious, ethnic, and value socialization. And contrary, adolescents are most susceptible to influence from larger society, being in alien cultural environment. And this alien cultural environment especially affects the development of ethnic and religious identity, that in their turn contribute to parent-child value similarity. When we have the case of family migration and acculturation, intergenerational transmission from parents to children should be less effective and maybe even dysfunctional in a society with a different religious background. Last sentence is very important for our study because it should light from the beginning it may be main specific of this study. So research questions are parents belonging to religious and ethnic minorities also successful in transmitting their values and identity when their religion and ethnicity differ from those of a dominant group? Do the religious and ethnic, in our case ethnonational, identities of adolescents from minority families contribute to parent-child value similarity? And what is the role of family climate in minority parent-child value similarity? We used family climate or psychological closeness with parent perceived by both sides, by parents and by adolescents, because there are different things. We conducted our studies in two North Caucasian republics, Kabardino-Balkaria and North Ossetia-Alania. You know that ethnic Russians constitute more than 80% of whole Russian population, and within North Caucasus, in the mid-50s, ethnic Russians were around 60%, but in 2010 only 23%, and this decline is continuing. Let's compare the social-cultural context of these two republics. Ethnic Russians are the ethnic minority in both republics. We can see very, very similar numbers of Russians in these republics compared with dominant population. But there is sharp differences in religious context. Russian Orthodox Christians are a religious majority in the Republic of North Ossetia-Alania. At the same time, Russian Orthodox Christians are the religious minority in Kabardino-Balkaria, where the majority of population are Muslims. So the most powerful characteristic of the context is religious background, religious difference or religious similarity. there are summary of these characteristics. And we built our hypothesis on the results of previous research in the field, as well as the analysis of this context. We propose that religious and ethnonational identities of adolescents and their parents positively predict parent-child value similarity. But there are some differences. In the different religious contexts, the adolescents' religious and ethnonational identities predict parent-child value similarity. In the same religious context, the parental, religious, and ethnonational identities predict parent-child value similarity. So we have different directions of vertical transmission in this case. The second hypothesis means that parental perceived psychological closeness with an adolescent in minorities negatively predicts parent-child value similarity regardless of religious context. We propose such hypothesis based on the idea that in different religious environment, the role of parents became weaker in value transmission, but the role of adolescent became stronger. And third hypothesis means that adolescents' perceived psychological closeness with a parent predicts parent-child value similarity, but differently in different religious contexts. In the different religious context, the adolescent's perceived psychological closeness negatively predicts parent-child value similarity, being a barrier. This negative prediction, negative relationship is some way barrier in this vertical transmission of values from parents. In the same religious context, the adolescent's perceived psychological closeness plays a role of transmission belt and positively predicts parent-child value similarity. So theoretical model reflects these propositions on this picture, and sample is presented in North Ossetia, Alania by 108 dyads, parent-child dyads, and in Kabardino-Balkaria 118 such dyads as well. Measures we used PVQR Schwartz value questionnaire. In this case, 57 items were combined in 19 values of Schwartz refined theory, and then they constitute 4 higher order values: self-transcendence, openness to change, self-enhancement, and conservation. Religious identity was measured by method from Verkeiten and included 5 items, such as my religious identity is an important part of me. Ethnonational identity combined, this measure combined 2 scales, ethnic and national identities, which are very close in case of Russians, included 10 items. For example, I'm proud to be Russian from ethnic identity measure, and I feel proud when I hear the anthem of Russia from national identity measurement. And perceived psychological closeness was evaluated by, please rate your level of psychological closeness with the people listed below on a 5-point scale from 1, not close, to 5, very close. My father, my mother, my son, and any other family members. We used a measure for the parent who participated in this study. For further analysis, mutual parent-child closeness estimations were used. Data processing was done using the statistical package of SPSS and path analysis in AMOS. you can see characteristics of two models for Russians in North Ossetia and Russians in Kabyle. And here is the final final model. So we can see that religious identity of child, as well as ethnonational identity of child, in case of Kabardino-Balkaria, are powerful predictors of parent-child values similarity. Contrary, religious identity of a parent and ethnonational identity of a parent are significant predictors of parent-child value similarity in North Ossetia. The results are given through slash, and on the left side you can see numbers for Kabardino-Balkaria. On the right side, below slash, you can see numbers for North Ossetia-Alania. Child's psychological closeness with a parent, we can see has different impacts on parent-child value similarity in two republics. In Kabardino-Balkaria, it is negative, and in North Ossetia-Alania, it is positive. And parent psychological closeness with the child, as we predicted, has negative impacts in both contexts. So all our hypotheses were confirmed, and we can see some main conclusion which we can discuss later, maybe in general discussion. In the same religious context, in North Ossetia-Alania, parental religious and ethnonational identities, cultural identity, promoted the parent-child value similarity. In the different religious context, adolescent religious and ethnonational identities promoted parent-child value similarity, a different direction of vertical transmission. Psychological closeness perceived by parents negatively related to the parent-child value similarity regardless of the religious context in both republics. In the different religious environment, Kabardino-Balkaria, the adolescents perceived psychological closeness with the parent negatively related to parent-child value similarity. Does not help this vertical transmission from parent. In the same religious context, North Ossetia, the adolescents perceived psychological closeness with the parent positively related to parent-child value similarity. From my point of view, these results told us about the very important role of cultural identities of minority families members when they are in different religious environment, and how important is ethnic, cultural, language socialization of children in minority families if we want them to be close to their parent, and if we want to culture to survive in a different cultural context. Also we can see that in a case of the same religious environment in North Ossetia, parental influence is much more stronger in culture transmission and value transmission than in different religious environment, where maybe child is the main source of this transmission, and this transmission depends on his or her identity, cultural identity, and wish to obtain culture and values of their own ethnic and religious cultures. Thank you very much.